customers I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead on myself. It's creating a traffic hazard still. Nothing has changed about that. An approach we suggested last month was for the town police to monitor that section of the highway on the weekends and warn customers that it is illegal to park on the highway shoulder on Route 28. This past weekend, as Bill mentioned, the Big Indian Park hosted the Classic Car Show. A manned police car spent the entire day, lights flashing, at the entrance to the park. That was a warning to folks where to park, to slow down. We're aware that this zoning violation is working its way through our code enforcement process. And I put that in quotes because the process has become rather interesting. Meanwhile, nothing is being done to discourage ongoing unsafe activity on the road. The second site we're concerned about is a former store that stripped to the studs and left to rot. The property owner was at the last month's town board meeting and promised to address the problem. He has boarded up the front. The pictures I gave you last month showed the front. The picture I'm giving you this time shows the back side, and the side clearly visible as you come down Olivia Road towards Route 28. It remains open. He's boarded up the two sides and left the back completely open. It's still an attractive nuisance, inviting vandalism. Finally, we asked you to consider an illegal junkyard in the heart of the hamlet. Last month there were 52 wrecks. Today, I go and count them. I was counting them and Chuck and I chatted about it. Today there are 46. And as was mentioned earlier, today and for the past 4 days, the tow truck, complete with a wreck, is parked on Church Road, adjacent to the junkyard. You can look at the pictures to see that. That's the last two pictures. This brings us to Shandaken's code enforcement process. Last month, I was advised by the supervisor to take these issues to the planning board and the zoning boards. Unfortunately, the zoning board didn't have a June meeting, but I did attend the June meeting of the planning board. Frankly, they were baffled as to why I had come to them. They do not supervise the code enforcement officer. He does update them on his activities. As we discussed the town's process for dealing with zoning violations, it became very clear there's some confusion. The code enforcement officer states that only the judge can impose a fine. Members of the planning board pointed out that the letter accompanying the issuance of an appearance ticket, which is a sort of major step in the process, that letter states that failure to comply can result in fines up to $1,000 a day. That language was adopted as part of the zoning code. The board appeared to maintain that imposing a fine was at the discretion of the town. So my question is, who and when does a fine get imposed? We were told by the town supervisor that if the property owner had made a good faith promise to clean up the property, no further action is taken. In the case of the illegal junkyard, this approach is simply not working. It is not our goal to see fines imposed. It is our goal to get the property cleaned up. We believe in this particularly complicated situation, we need a different approach. We propose that a committee be formed and a meeting be convened that includes Rob Stanley, the town supervisor, Howie McGowan, the code enforcement officer, Chuck Perez, the property owner, and John Nicolati, representing Big Indian Beautification. The purpose of the meeting is to create a mutually agreed upon specific plan to set measurable goals with concrete deadlines, to require quantifiable results, actually decreasing car counts by specific dates, and then finally to detail the financial consequences of failure to meet the deadlines. That is, daily accumulating fines. When I spoke with Chuck while I was walking around counting the wrecks on Sunday, he said, "I'm doing my best." And part of me knows he is. Part of me knows he's had a really tough spring. But when he said to me, "It's one day at a time," I thought, that's not a sufficient answer. It's been one day at a time since 18 months ago when we promised it'd be cleaned up by Memorial Day, 18 months ago. It's one day at a time when he says to many of his neighbors and friends and people who care about him, "I'm working on it. I'll do it. I'm going to get it done." I told him we'd like to help. He said, "That's hard for me to accept. It's my place. It's my responsibility. I'm working on it." So tonight, you could help us by passing a resolution of support that endorses the creation of a committee to address zoning violations in the hamlet of Big Indian. It's not a big committee that's going to take over the town. We're just asking to focus on these issues. Thank you for your time.
I just add something to that. I could be wrong, but most of the time you take a car, you take it to the junkyard, they crush it up, it's worth money. I just don't understand why I don't get rid of it. It's not that difficult. The guy has a flatbed. If he took a car a day, he'd get money for him at the crusher. I don't know what they're worth anymore, but I mean, you take a car a day and in 30 days you got a job done.
That's the problem, they're not worth nothing.
They gotta be worth something.
Very with the tariff, junk price. Between town hall and town garage.
It's a big problem.
John?
First one, does the town have in place regulations? Number two, does the zoning officer, can he enact those regulations? And number three, does he have the support of his bosses? Now, we were sent to the planning board saying, well, we're not really his boss. The planning board's his boss. The planning board made it very clear that the buck stops with you guys, not with them. It's your decision whether this gets corrected or not. Not the zoning board, not the planning board, but the town board. You can make it happen or you can ignore it. But election day is coming, and if it gets ignored, we're going to find people that won't ignore it. This has to be corrected.
I think that we've been remiss a lot in this, and we've been leaving it up to maybe our supervisor to take care of things, thinking that he's just going to take care of it. I believe that the whole town board and a committee should have a meeting, not just the committee, because I think we should all be part of it.
Yeah, you're missing quite a few important people tonight, like the supervisor, Howie, the guy, and maybe a lawyer. I heard there's a lawyer missing too. You always need a lawyer around,
No,
don't you?
no, not that lawyer. But we are missing some people that we should be having here.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I think that we really need to come together in a group and get this resolved, because I personally have been seeing it.
Yeah, I see it all over
I've been
town.
watching it for years and nothing has gotten resolved.
You're in the real estate business.
I-
Nobody knows better than you.
I know very much about that, and, you know, everyone loves Chuck. He's a great guy. He's a wonderful neighbor in many ways, but he has some kind of, there's a challenge, a huge challenge that he has that he can't seem to overcome. So I think the town really has to step in and help him overcome it somehow. So, and we also have to look at giving tools to our zoning officer to enforce things easier rather than waiting for, you know, injunctions and fines and this and that and a court date a year away from now and all that, because we are a beautiful town. We're a beautiful town. So we need to,
Well, we can't make a
Yeah, we might.
resolution at this point,
No, we
but what I
can't,
can
not-
do is
no.
make a motion that we get together with Rob and the zoning officer at a time when the supervisor's back, and we'll hammer this out in a
Right,
public
sooner
meeting.
than later. Thank you.
Obviously.
Yeah,
Quick
go ahead.
comment. I just want to briefly comment. I'm Brian Powers from Chichester. I'm also running for town supervisor. And I want to say that I really appreciated Marty's suggestion about bringing the three parties together, but Faye, your idea to bring every member of the board into this is really, I think that's going to be the way to go. This is the most effective thing I think we can do. And if the town needs new tools in order to deal with this, with each of these situations that they're looking at in Big Indian and elsewhere in town, then we're gonna have to find a way to create those tools.
Yeah, right.
So, thanks everybody for.
There are places all over town, spots here and there that need attention, and this is definitely long overdue.
Phyllis?
This makes me a little sad though. I mean, everyone's got good intentions and we know there's a problem. Everyone on the board, because a lot of people here who have this concern, have driven by these places from time to time. They see it. Is the board not taking initiative to say, hey, we got a problem here? What are the qualifications for a zoning board? What's his job description? Why do we have to turn neighbor against neighbor? Why are we here?
Yes.
And instead, the one thing that wasn't mentioned is that maple syrup comes
Oh,
down.
that's a mess.
On
It's a big
47.
mess.
They cleaned it up just recently, but I have pictures here to show you the mess. I
It's a
showed you
Mary
those 3
Poppins
years ago.
miracle.
I showed you.
Oh, that's the old Mountain Gate line?
Not the case,
No.
no, on 47. It's
On
by the
47.
last house before McKinley Hollow Road.
Wow.
And it's
He's no
maple
longer
syrup.
there, he moved away, but he
Oh.
left a mess.
Oh.
Well, if you want to see his warehouse, I mean, my God, you see these pictures? And this is from 3 or 4 years ago. So, I mean, I don't understand it. Where does it go? If I were on the board, I'd say, hey, that's a mess, let me go to my zoning officer, something's got to be done with this. But, you know.
Well, a lot of times we talk to the zoning officer, the code enforcement officer, and think that it's going to move from there. And unless you drive by that spot every day,
Yeah.
it's out of your sight, out of your mind. So you forget to follow up on that.
And Alvaria is actually part of the Big Indian beautification.
Yes, it's not very seldom mentioned.
Big Indian Alvaria, same
And you know,
coastal
we
zone.
also have a
Should be
community now that
included,
really
yeah.
cares about their area. You know, I mean, the parks are beautiful, people really care. And I think we live, we live in a beautiful region, so.
But we weren't able to do it. Remember on 212, 4 years ago, 5 years ago? The owner now is deceased and it's completely cleaned up. But it was cleaned up before then, because I wasn't on the board then.
There's spots that will get cleaned up and then it goes to, people fall on hard times and they just start hoarding stuff in their yard and
So what we have to make a resolution?
we made the motion.
We made the
And I need
motion.
a second that we get everybody together to have a meeting on these important issues of zoning.
Before you make that motion,
Yeah.
can you put a deadline on it, like when it's gonna happen by? Not just that it's gonna happen. Like, by the next meeting, we will have a resolution, we'll have
By the
something
next meeting.
concrete done.
Yeah,
I agree.
Rob will be back before the next meeting, so we'll put it together before the next meeting.
So there'll be a meeting of the people involved before the next meeting with a plan to move forward.
Absolutely.
Doesn't that have to be a public meeting though?
It has to be a public meeting if we all get together, so that has to be coordinated with the proper time frame. So,
Has to be advertised, right?
yeah,
Listen, I got a proposal. Isn't it right across the street that you can bring in recycling and junk over there? That the town owns that, right over
yeah,
there?
it's always very.
I mean, how about you get a town truck and town people and maybe some volunteers? And if the people can't help themselves, well, maybe we'll have to go over there and clean it up ourselves. Throw it in the town truck and throw it over there. What's the matter with that?
We can't go on private.
How about vigilantes then? Is that what it's gotta come to? Yeah, I know. My God,
I can't hear
we need action.
Lisa?
I know that's a funny, I mean, there's humor in that, but to piggyback on what you're saying, in terms of residential garbage, you know, especially at the top of Oliveria Road, if people do need help, I mean, I don't think anyone here wants to be a villain and attack people who, I don't know the story, I don't know if it's down on your luck, whatever, but I actually suggested to Howie in one of my many phone calls to him that, you know, that residents band together and offer to help people get rid of mattresses or broken playground equipment or things that, I don't know, maybe they don't have the means or the ability to do.
Yeah.
And I certainly would be willing, and I think other people have said similar things about volunteering help. But what my idea was met with was, you know, resistance. Just you can't go on private property. If anyone got hurt trying to help, there would be a lawsuit, this, that, and the other thing. I just wish it didn't have to be so complicated. I wish that neighbors would come together to help neighbors get rid of crap that's bothering everyone.
If as a community we send a letter offering the help, then, you know, that would be the first step.
But this
If
has
the
been
town
going on,
can-
I mean, excuse me for interrupting, but I've been talking to, you know, Warren Tuck, the previous zoning guy. I mean, I've been talking, I live on Oliveria Road too, and I've had my house since 1999. I've raised, I mean, I've been a partial resident here, but I have 2 kids who enjoyed growing up here. I work so hard on my property. I love my house. I love my community. I've been talking about this for years. And I feel like it's not even necessary to go into that because it really seems like it's reaching ahead now, but I don't understand why people can't help. It doesn't have to be an attack situation.
Of course.
But nothing ever, but there's nothing in place to enable that action, it seems. And could there be, I guess, is my question.
Marty?
I just have a question about, if you put together the full board and Howie and John, then it has to be a meeting, right? Because you can't all be together and discuss anything unless it's a meeting.
Right.
So that means you're gonna then set up a separate meeting for just this? I mean,
Well, I think the idea that I had was the full board because everybody wants to know exactly what's going on and how it's being resolved and how we can work towards giving Howie maybe better tools to work with. And I think that's why we all need to know and not just 1 or 2 of us.
And if it works right, we can get this done before the regular town board meeting of next month.
Okay.
We can try, as long as we have the time to put the notices out, because we have to legally put notices out.
How much time do we need?
It-
10 days?
Yeah, 10 days, 2 weeks.
I mean, you could do a committee meeting, but you'd have to do a resolution to form a committee meeting, and that's gonna take another month. So, you know, it all takes time, but if you
Just have a
make it
special
a public hearing or a special hearing for
Yeah.
the public, or let him decide when he comes, what he wants to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And then they can have that, and then if you wanna do something else, you can always have a town board meeting a half hour earlier to cover that, you
Right.
know, so it's not, you know,
Right.
but that, he knows more about that, but he knew 10 days. So when he gets back,
That would be the easiest way to do it, would be
Ask him.
right before the regular town board meeting next month.
So you plan on having a meeting for every property separately? I mean, you've talked a lot about Chuck, you talked a little bit about the flea market. You kind of don't seem to talk much about Evans, which is really the biggest garbage disaster at the head of the valley. So, I mean, you have to get all these people together at one time and talk to all of them? You're gonna have a meeting
Well,
for
I
each
think
one
what we're
individually?
talking about is just having a meeting with us and Howie and beautification committee, just to, you know, focus on what needs to be done, what can we do?
What are the legal
What are
ramifications?
the
What power
legal-
do you have to enforce it?
Exactly,
Do
exactly.
you have
Well, you don't
power
know?
We
to
do.
enforce it?
We do.
So then what is the
But
issue?
there, it isn't just going in and making the force, it's giving them a notice of violation. Then they have X amount of days to reply to that notice of violation.
But that's
And
happened over and over and over.
Yeah,
Well-
how come it hasn't happened all these years?
It may
has,
have,
it
and it may
has.
have. We have to sit down with Howie and find out what has been, what has transpired. He's not here right now to answer those questions. So, you know, tomorrow
All
I.
right, we're giving you 30 days.
Right, so it's disappointing that Howie's not here, but From my understanding, Chuck has been given a deadline. I don't know the date, so don't
It was
ask me.
June 15th, they were given a deadline, they were supposed to get $1,000 a day fine after that.
After whatever the allotted amount
Now
of time
that's
is.
gone by already, so.
Yeah, maybe we have the hamlet of Oliver Reader included in with the big Indian beautification, because we all contribute to that. And I just didn't want Oliver Reader left off of it, because,
I think what we wanna do is get something enacted so that it will
yeah,
cover all
I just
of
wanted to
this.
make sure it was included in writing.
Yeah, everything, you know, but it's gonna cover these problems. Yes,
Can I just go back to what you just said? Did you just say that starting June 15th?
I believe it was June 15th was the deadline where they needed to start cleaning up or fixing or whatever. And after that, it was going to be $1,000 a day.
See, the problem is, he needs to start, and he does start, and there are 6 fewer cars. We want a plan that covers the remaining 46
Well, of course,
cars.
you don't want it just to be a little, you know, a drop in the bucket. You want it to be a complete.
To be honest, I think
He's
legally,
removing weeds from his property right now.
I
That's
think-
not why we're here. We're here to remove wrecks,
Right.
listen,
and it's about time.
I think legally, if you imposed a fine and gave him a deadline, that if he removed a few wrecks, he's no longer legally responsible for that fine because he's showing that he's doing something about
Right,
it.
so that's why we.
So in
need
other
to
words,
this-
not only do you have to give a deadline, but I think you have to give an amount, so many per week.
Yeah.
You can game the system all day long.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
I
not
mean,
why everybody's here.
Right.
that's what lawyers live on.
Yeah.
Well, in this, I'm going to try and get Rob to get a zoning attorney here to try and guide us in the right.
Because people are clearly confused, and Howie has one point of view, and the planning board has a very different one.
Right.
You know, understand, I mean, if you impose fines, there may be people that they can't pay them, they don't have the means.
It
Then
isn't
you,
about the
then the
money,
next
I
step is
understand.
you impose a lien on their property, and their property may not be worth anything, and they have no place to go. I mean,
We
it's a
all
whole
understand it's not
snowball.
about the money, it's just about the motions, getting things happening.
Yeah, people want stuff to happen.
That's right,
They don't want to be fined, you know, they don't want to, just get the job done.
we understand.
Everybody over here's willing to help, I guess, right? Am I right? There you go, so that's why we're here, trying to figure out, and hopefully, we're gonna see some action.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. 'cause
And
I
you
know it's a
too.
Big.
All in favor for that motion?
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye. Second?
Yeah.
Okay, we're all in favor.
Is the meeting adjourned?
No. Okay. You've been waiting forever.
Hi, I'm Krista Trindler, and I live in Phoenicia, New York, and I'm here representing the Shandaken Home Sharing Association. We've been attending the short-term rental meetings and listening to the committee, and it's our understanding that moving forward, we'll be forming a new committee that will include members from the Shandaken Home Sharing Association. And I sent an email to Rob earlier, not realizing he was on vacation, but just stating that myself, Krista Trindler, and James Cope will be the representatives from our association.
Fantastic, good.
So, do you need a letter for that, or?
I would like it.
Yeah, well, Kevin's on it, so.
Right.
So, you guys will come to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Next Monday?
Uh-huh. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Home sharing is what, like B&Bs?
Yes, short-term rentals.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Mary Lou Stapleton. I just want to talk a little bit about Big Indian. I mean, I'm hearing all this talk. I've lived there my whole life. I was born in Big Indian, and I know what it used to look like. And we started a car show 34 years ago, my husband and myself and a couple other people. And the car show, the reason we started the car show was to help bring people to the community for the businesses that were there so that they could make a few dollars. Everybody stopped at the gas stations, they stopped in Phoenicia in the pharmacy, they would have dinner at the restaurant, they'd get gas from Chuck, and they would go to the general store and get something, and I had a gift shop then, and they would stop there. And it was a beautiful ride coming up to Big Indian. And as you know, we all know it's not such a beautiful ride. But my main reason I wanted to speak was I wanted to thank the town highway department for the beautiful work they do in the Big Indian Park. It is one of the most beautiful parks in Big Indian. Someone
Eric's
called,
right behind you.
someone called me today and told me, well, the fellow, it was Sid Ford called me today, and he says, boy, he says, you had that car show yesterday, you had all those people there, the Big Indian Fire Department did the food for everybody. We had over 70, 80 classic cars there of all makes and models from
Great. It was nice.
1927
It's awesome.
to 2000, and they said they've never seen a park so cleaned up. It's just, I just want to pass it on to your highway department, please. And I also like to thank the police department because they had an officer there. George was there most of the day. And we always worry about, because everybody flies up 28, as we all know. And he was there and he was directing traffic, helped the cars get in and out, and helped the public find a place to park. In the past, they were able to park at the gas station when there was space. Chuck would let us park there and other places in the community. And that's really all I have to say, but it's just a shame that it looks like it does, because it's hard for my kids to come back home and see Mom, and when they see what it looks like.
This is a very personal story, but I was embarrassed by it. My cousin, Bud, came down from Texas, from to see us. And when he got to the house, he said, oh, Phil, this is really nice. He goes, but is something wrong? Are you in such a depressed area? He thought I had something wrong. I was poor. I was in this terrible, terrible place. I said, no, this is just older people. They've been here ever since 1971. And I was so embarrassed when he said that. I have a friend who takes her friend go through peekamoos and through the back so she doesn't see the front.
Yeah, I do that sometimes.
So,
I don't want anyone seeing it, it's so horrible.
and we all know the problem. The thing is how we solve it. That's where we need the brain power going through. And should there be a kind of a law going through here to say we want that place just to be kept nice? They do in certain communities. They even have a houses painted the same. I'm not calling for that, but there can't be a junkyard. The house belongs in the house, not on the front porch.